Chapter 1, The Sound of the Shell. If you go back to page 7, the very first page, follow along with me. They talk about a long scar smashed into the jungle. What's that scar? The plane crash, right? The plane crash. But the plane's not there. And they talk, Piggy and Ralph said, well, the sea must have pulled it back out. But the damage has been done. Okay, if you've ever seen a plane crash, if there's any part of a plane left at all, I mean, the ground and the trees and everything's just obliterated. So imagine this pristine mountainside or this beach or wooded area just with this jagged, ugly scar, like a wound that's fresh and open right there. Because when we see scar, that's a main geographic location of this island. The first few pages are, the main dialogue is by Piggy. Okay, Piggy is talking, to Ralph. Ralph doesn't really seem to be talking back. Ralph seems to be kind of in a playful mood, jumping around. He's the first one to kind of strip off his clothes and start running around and enjoying the sun. They find that little lagoon, which is, if you have the beach, okay, it's on the beach, and then there's this pool of water that, because of high tide, it's something has separated it from the ocean, and it's that, if there's not a lot of water and the sun heats it up, it's going to be hot. And they say that it's almost like a bath. And so they're just swimming around in there, having a good time. Piggy kind of has some smarts here. Not only does he introduce himself here, but they find the conch shell, or conch as the British call it, and they start to. He says, "Hey, I saw one of these back home, and you can blow this, and maybe people will hear you." Because imagine kids all over the island. You just can't. Hey, come here. But if you have this thing that goes, oh, it just kind of starts to call you. You'd be like, that's a weird sound. I thought I was the only one on this island. So you kind of start to congregate and come towards that sound. And that's where all of the other children that are on the island, including Jack and the choir boys, they'll show up here and and talk and really start the dynamics of the group relationship-wise. Some of the key things on page 8 and 9, Piggy talking about, we was attacked. When we was coming down, I looked through one of the windows and I saw the other part of the plane. There were flames coming out of it, and so we hear that, their plane crashed and shot down. He looked out, he saw others fighting. Excuse me. Piggy asks Ralph's name, but Ralph doesn't seem to be very cordial and asking, reciprocating the question. What's your name? How are you? What's going on? So Piggy's just kind of the one doing the talking. Okay, the one doing the talking, which is important. He has his glasses that he's always cleaning. He talks about his mom and dad, were dead. And he lived with his aunt, and she owned a candy store, and he could have all the candy he wanted. So we have this kid who's obviously got his size because of the candy, but we can see that, he's, out of the two of them, and we're not very far in the book, he's kind of the one thinking, and is the intelligent one. Yeah, that conch shell, just sounds like a warning, just this foghorn type sound that just pierces the quietness of the island. And you hear noises, as one, Piggy sees, there's some kids down there coming out, they hear more noise coming out of the forest and down the beach, and people are just kind of congregating to the vicinity. So Jack and the boys, the choir boys, show up after the conch shell is blown, and excuse me, they come out in uniform. They come out very, I don't want to say military like an army, but they were in formation and walking. Like when you were little and you had to walk from one place to the other in school, you probably got in a line and started walking, right? Single file, that type of thing. So there was some order, some structure. They all get together for the first time, all the kids, and they discuss that, we should have a leader. And obviously Jack, who's in charge of the choir, says, the leader should be me. And then he says, I can sing a high C, which those of you know in music, that's a note above the staff. So he thinks that he should be in charge because of a note that he can say. And no one says, no, you're wrong. So there must be some hierarchy within the choir already that they look up to him because he can sing. Oh, wow, that's good. And remember, these are little kids, so then they associate being in charge with your physical abilities. So Jack kind of has that physical presence and that authoritative demeanor about him. Piggy, obviously to everyone there, seems to be the most intelligent. Now, whether it's because he's talking all the time, that he has his ideas, or that, sometimes, have you ever associated having glasses with somebody being intelligent? You always see pictures of, librarians, and librarians usually have glasses, that's that type of stereotype. And so he shows that he has the intelligence, and Jack kind of as the natural leader. And Ralph doesn't stand up and say that he should be in charge, but everybody votes Ralph that he should be the leader. And so Ralph becomes the leader because they look at Ralph as, you were the one who signaled us here. You were the one holding that conch shell. Remember we talked about symbolism? That conch shell symbolism? I mean, Ralph doesn't do anything. He's holding onto this conch shell, but then all of a sudden, that conch shell is power. Because you blew that and you called us here and you are controlling this meeting, that conch shell is power. Okay, so keep that in your mind. And so when we start to see the meetings happen throughout the early parts of this book, whoever has a conch shell kind of wields the power at that meeting at that moment. They decide that they need to, right after Ralph decides that, or they decide that Ralph is the leader, he does tell Jack, because he notices, these two alpha males, he notices that Jack is in charge of people. Goes, why don't you and your choirs, you can be an army, or you can be hunters or something. And so Jack smiles and goes, hunters. So he is in charge still, just not in charge of everybody. He still has some power. And so somebody who wants to be in charge, you give them a little bit of power and let them do their thing. It's a good management skill. But Jack and Ralph and Simon decide to go up on the mountain. They need to figure out if this is an island. Just because there's a beach doesn't mean it's an island, right? Just because you're in California or Florida and you're on the beach doesn't mean you're on an island. And so they have to figure that out. And so in order to figure out, you got to get to the highest point. So they need to climb up the mountain. And in doing so, they go up the mountain. They have fun. They bond. They push big rocks down and big heavy things, and just obliterates anything in its way and in its path. And they have fun. And there's even a phrase in there that they're friends. They have this bonding moment. They get up to the top and they see that it is a mountain. They can look down at the scar on the beach and see little ants running around, the kids running around. And so they realize, well, this is an island. There's no rescue coming right now, so we have to do something. So Jack goes, well, I can hunt. And then they eventually, as the chapter goes on, they're going to have to figure out, not just food, but looking for water, looking for shelter, huts on beaches, things of that nature. But this has started to, instead of just kids on the beach, they figure out, okay, this is an island, now what do we need to do? And so decisions are made. One of the most interesting parts of this chapter is right at the very end, is as they're walking back, they stumble across a little pig trapped in the vines. And so Jack, who has a knife, and at that meeting earlier, he just takes it and stabs it into a tree, and that gets everybody's attention. Everybody, because he has a weapon. Power. Violence. And so Jack, he pulls this dagger out, and I want us to walk through those pages because it's very interesting. Page 30, 31. Page 31. The three boys rushed forward, and Jack drew his knife again with a flourish. So, middle of that paragraph. He raised his arm in the air. There came a pause, a hiatus. The pig continued to scream, and the creepers to jerk. The creepers are vines in the trees, and this pig became entangled. And so all he has to do is walk up and stab him. Okay? But he pulls his arm up, and the blade continued to flash at the end of the bony arm. The pause was only long enough for them to understand what an enormity the downward stroke would be. Then the piglet tore loose from the creepers and scurried into the undergrowth. They were left looking at each other and the place of terror. Jack's face was white under the freckles. He noticed that he still held the knife aloft and brought his arm down, replacing the blade in the sheath. Then they all three laughed ashamedly and began to climb back to the track. And so he pulls his knife up, but he pauses, and it's enough for it to run away. So he puts the blade away, and they all kind of just chuckle a little bit. The reason he didn't bring it down is that line. They understood the enormity of bringing that down. To talk about killing and hunting and all these things is one thing, but to come down and actually stab that pig or that piglet or whatever and kill it, that's another thing altogether. To actually do the deed and bring death upon something is a big step, especially for anyone, but let alone these kids. Okay? And they all realize that. And Jack is shaking and talks about his face is white. So he knows that it's not that it's wrong. It's just that it's an action that he's uncomfortable with doing. And Jack, look at his defense. I was choosing a place. I was just waiting for a moment to decide where to stab it. Well, is that true? Was he contemplating it? Well, no, not if his face is all pale. Okay, and they have that nervous laugh. Oh, I was just looking for a place to stick it. Sure you were. Sure you were. And he even comes out and goes, yeah, you cut a pig's throat to let the blood out, otherwise you can't eat meat. Look how smart I am. Look, I know everything about pigs. I was just looking for the best place to stick them. Okay? Jack is very much wanting to be in control and in charge and look to be the good guy. Not the necessarily good guy, but the guy that people look up to. He's the one who, tells, Piggy, shut up, fatty. He's a genuine bully. We talk about bullying in school nowadays, and Ralph doesn't help the cause. Anybody laughing and people are cheering. I mean, how do you think that makes Piggy feel? Probably not very good. Okay, so Jack, to get people's attention, to tell people, he needs to make them laugh and put somebody else down so that he can feel better about himself. They knew very well why he hadn't. Because of the enormity of the knife descending and cutting into living flesh. Because of the unbearable blood. This is important, folks, because these issues aren't going to be a problem later on in the book. And so to see these children now having a problem with it and then later on not, that shows you how they, de-evolve over time and go backwards. I was going to, said Jack. He was ahead of them, and they couldn't see his face. I was choosing a place. Next time. He snatched his knife out of the sheath and slammed it into a tree trunk. Next time there would be no mercy. He looked around fiercely, daring them to contradict. Then they broke out in the sunlight. For a while they were busy finding and devouring food as they moved down the scar toward the platform and the meeting. And so he just takes it and stabs it into a tree. Next time I'll do it. And he just kind of looked at them, kind of to Simon and Ralph in a challenging way, like, call me a liar. Call me a liar. I will do next time. No mercy. I will do it. And so we see this very violent nature of slamming knives around, and somebody who says, I'm going to do it. So we need to keep an eye on Jack. So far, Jack and Ralph are getting along okay. Okay, the two, and you hear the term alpha males, means there's usually two alphas can't really coexist because they want to be in charge. Okay, and so right now you can see Ralph and Jack trying to be friends here, and they say that they are friends. But yet kind of keep an eye on that relationship as we go through this book. Look at the relationship between Ralph and Piggy. Ralph and Piggy, would you say that they're friends? Would you? No. Does Piggy want to be friends? Well, yeah. A bully, overweight kid with glasses on an island without parents and everything. He wants to be, popular. He wants to be in with the gangs, whatever. Not like gangs, but, the group. And we will really see this evolution of these roles. Ralph, will see him growing, taking on more of a leader position, even though, he is the leader. Yeah, but in title. We need to see him do it in action, okay? And we will see us pick up. The next chapter is called Fire on the Mountainside. So they figure out ways, okay, we need to figure out what our next step is, okay? This is, I think, the longest chapter. Most chapters are 20, 25 minutes, so they'll go much quicker. But the very beginning of books are so important because we need to establish who these people are. Otherwise, we won't care about the story. We need to understand the role of Piggy and Ralph and care about these people. We need to understand Jack and care about them so that the actions later on, it plays out and we care about these people. Okay? So it's not just simply your understanding of what's going on in the story. We need to be able to discuss and answer questions and have debates about these particular people. Like, who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? Do those roles change throughout? The theme and the symbolism, the evil, the devil symbolism that's going to be coming up later on. All of these things have no bearing if you're not, staying up with us and paying attention. So.